My breastfeeding essentials, tips, and my story about breastfeeding. This helps to collect that leakage. Breastfeeding is natural, but it doesn't come naturally. This was something that I didn't know would be an issue. My mom didn't have supply issues. All the people that I watched on YouTube never had supply issues, but unfortunately, I had a supply issue. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I wanted to do my breastfeeding essentials, tips, and my story about breastfeeding. My son Ezra is almost 5 months old, so I've been going through breastfeeding for about 5 months now, and it's been quite the journey. First, I want to talk about breastfeeding essentials, things that I think are great for you to have on hand if you are planning to breastfeed and nurse. Also, I just want to clarify, breastfeeding can mean feeding a bottle and can also mean nursing, so I'm going to focus mostly on nursing at first. So the first thing I would say is to make sure you have your station ready. I always fed in the bedroom because I felt more comfortable there. I was able to sit on the bed and relax. You might have a rocking chair or a nursing chair, whatever works for you, whatever is comfortable, so make sure you have good back support. I actually used my pregnancy pillow. I would just curl it up into a coil and use that as my back support. And then at my station, I would always have water. So my first tip is to have a water bottle with a straw, because when you're breastfeeding, you're likely only going to have one hand free. When you get more used to it, you'll have maybe 2 hands free, but for me, I only had 1 hand free, and often I was all thirsty, and they always say you want to drink a lot of water when you're nursing. So I would be breastfeeding and I would need to drink water. It was easier for me to just grab the water bottle, pop open the lid, and take a drink versus having to unscrew the top with a hand while holding it and then trying to drink it. So having a water bottle or a water cup with a straw is very essential. I always make sure my water bottle is filled to the top at the beginning of each session. Next, I think it's really essential to have a pumping nursing bra. I bought these from Amazon as well. I'll link them below, but they are helpful because you don't know if you're gonna have to pump. And what I like about this is that it does both. So the way nursing bras work is you are able to unclip it and easily nurse while still wearing your bra. In the beginning, they really recommend skin to skin with your baby when you're breastfeeding, and so I honestly just took off my bra. That way he had the most access to my skin, but later on you're able to just use a nursing bra. That way you can wear a bra around the house, and when you need to nurse, you can just take it down instead of removing your entire bra and easily snap it back on. So I liked having this 2-in-1, that way you can do both in case you need to do both, or later on you can reuse the same bra when you're pumping if you go back to work, for example. The next thing that's very helpful is having some sort of breastfeeding pillow. So I preferred the My Breast Friend pillow because it's very stable. There's a lot of surface area for your baby to lay on, and it's really easy to use. So you basically just put it over your waist, you clip it in, and then it acts as a surface for your baby to lay on while you breastfeed them. I also like that it has this pocket in the front where you can I usually put my phone in here, that way when I'm sitting down and I'm all situated, I can easily pull my phone out and look at it. And yeah, it's easily washable, comfortable. It also has a little bit of a back support, so having a breastfeeding pillow I thought was essential instead of just using a normal pillow, because this thing is very secure and really helped me and Ezra to get his latch and his positioning correct, because even though he latched, he felt very loose. So if anything, if I wasn't able to support him, I feel like if I wasn't able to support his head and body, I feel like he would easily unlatch. And so this allowed him to just rest on this pillow while he's nursing, and that way I didn't have to hold his body, and because that is very tiring. So the next essential when you're nursing is a HAAKAA, or some sort of silicone pump. So I actually didn't need to use this in the beginning because my supply was low, but basically when you're nursing on one side, you do have a little bit of leakage on the other side. And so this helps to collect that leakage, otherwise it would just go into a breast pad or soak your bra. So you just open up the flanges like this, and then you go like this, put it on your breast, let the flange go up and then release, and it suctions onto your breast, and then kind of like this, and it just captures the milk that comes down. For most people, I know they got several ounces from it, so it's a real big lifesaver, and you can start using this to build your milk stash. The next essential is nipple cream. So I really like this Earth Mama organic nipple butter. One tip my friend actually told me is to start putting this on several weeks before you even give birth. That way you are sort of prepping your nipples, because once you give birth, you're gonna try to breastfeed within the first few hours. And so you wanna make sure your nipples are primed for breastfeeding, which is going to make your nipples very sore. Sometimes they get cracked, sometimes they bleed. So I would recommend putting on the nipple cream every time after you nurse. And if you can, let your breasts air dry, because this helps with the healing process. And even now I still use this because when I'm pumping or after you're nursing, your nipples are just very dry and sometimes irritated, and this just really helps. So make sure you have a good nipple cream. So the next essential is a robe with pockets. So I just got this one from Amazon. It's very comfortable. In the beginning stages, you are basically nursing 24/7, and so it feels like it's really hard to put on regular clothes, and you're recovering from birth. So having a robe is just something you can throw on so you don't feel completely naked, and you're able to let your breasts air dry if you need them. And I like the pockets because, at least for me, I had to pump after I nursed because I had low supply. So I was able to put my pump in the pocket of my robe, which was really helpful. So again, anything that makes you feel comfortable, stretchy, you don't want anything restricting around your waist area sometimes or your legs, and you just want easy access to your breasts because your baby will be feeding so often. And when you get used to it, you can wear normal clothes and then you can just sort of pull up, but in the beginning it was helpful to have a robe. Now that we finished with the essentials, let's get into actual nursing or breastfeeding. So again, this will focus mostly on nursing, which is when you feed your baby from your breast. First, I would recommend take a breastfeeding course or see a lactation consultant or do both. Because breastfeeding is natural, but it doesn't come naturally. It's difficult. Every baby is different. Every mom is different. Every situation is different. And so it's easier if you can take a class and understand the different holds, what helps with breastfeeding, how to troubleshoot issues. Once you watch it, it's really helpful. And when you're at the hospital, you can ask for a lactation consultant to come and visit you. That way you can make sure that you are feeding correctly. So some of the tips that I learned from the class is, first of all, try to do skin to skin as soon as possible after birth. I think for me, maybe it was 20 minutes after I gave birth, and they cleaned up everything and they checked Ezra. They gave him back to me and he was immediately placed on my chest. We were literally skin to skin. And they say that this helps to regulate the baby's heartbeat, help them feel a little bit less of a shock since they just came into the world. And naturally, your baby will start searching for the nipple. And so you want to give the baby as much time and freedom to find it on his or her own, and then once he finds it, you can help him latch. I was lucky that a nurse was nearby and was able to help sort of put him on the breast. But also the class will teach you how to do the first few feedings. In the beginning, you only have colostrum, which is a very thick type of breast milk, and that's all they need. A newborn's stomach size is really small, so they can't drink much and they don't need much to begin with. I found that the best position was cross cradle. So it's essentially you're holding the baby. Let's pretend that this is the baby. You're holding the baby this way with the head towards the breast. And with this hand, you are cupping the breast. That way you can pull the baby to the breast and squeeze. Because babies have more incentive when there's milk coming out and when there's milk already on the nipple. So I would squeeze a little bit to make sure that there's some milk around the nipple, and I would tickle his nose and his mouth to open. And once he opens his mouth, immediately bring him to the breast and put in as much breast tissue as possible so that he gets a really good latch. The latch is all about how much is he on the breast. Right, so you don't want him to be sucking just on the nipple like this. You want his whole mouth to be around the entire breast. And then he'll start sucking. You can also fix, you want their lips to be flared out. And so if you can tell his lip is sort of tucked in, you can pull down on the chin and then it helps to flare out the lips. Then you want to listen or look for audible swallows. So you can tell when the baby is swallowing. You also hear a sound, and then you know that he's getting milk. Because unlike bottles, you can't see how much they're getting or if they're even getting anything. So this leads into my own story about my breastfeeding journey. As I said in the beginning, I did skin to skin. Ezra latched right away. There was no issues. I mean, his latch wasn't perfect, so I definitely had some blisters and a little bit of bleeding, but overall he was still at least able to latch, which apparently is also very difficult for some first-time moms. But my issue was my milk supply. So in the beginning, I had a little bit of colostrum. I could see it when I squeezed, but I'm not sure how much he was really getting. They say that your milk supply takes about 3 to 4 days to come in. Unfortunately, by the 3rd day out of the hospital, we took him to the pediatrician's office and they said that he was losing too much weight. So newborns do lose weight in the beginning, but he was losing more than, I think it's 10% of his birth weight. And so they were becoming concerned that he wasn't getting enough food. And they had asked if my milk had come in by then, and it still hadn't. By the 4th day, still nothing, and they said you should really supplement with formula. This was something that I didn't know would be an issue. My mom didn't have supply issues. All the people that I watched on YouTube never had supply issues, but unfortunately I had a supply issue. The first issue being that my milk hadn't even come in yet. My milk finally came in by the 5th day, but by then he was unfortunately probably starving. He was crying a lot, he was not sleeping well, and so we thought, even though I would nurse for 10 to 15 minutes on each side, he probably wasn't getting enough. And so we gave him a little bit of formula, and that first time he drank the formula, he knocked out and slept so much better. So he was just really hungry, which is very sad to think that, you know, I wasn't feeding my baby correctly. So after that, we did a combination of nursing, and then I would feed him extra formula from a bottle. Now, because I had low milk supply, I had to see a lactation consultant. She told me that I had to pump after every session, which was news to me. But for people who have low milk supply, what they need to do is they need to pump to stimulate their breasts to increase the milk production, because breastfeeding is on demand, which means your body produces the milk when it thinks your baby needs it or when your baby nurses. But for people with low milk supply, you need to sort of fake it. So what I would have to do is nurse for 10 minutes on both sides. And the reason it was 10 minutes is because when a baby is small, you have to balance them exerting too many calories and too much energy drinking versus not getting enough, if that makes sense. So usually you do like 15 minutes per side, but the lactation consultant said that we want to keep it low, that way he doesn't exert too much energy. So I would do 10 minutes each side. Then I would feed him about 30 mils. Also, when you talk about breastfeeding and nursing, you reference mils, not ounces. 30 mils is about 1 ounce. So I would feed him about 30 mils from a bottle of formula. And then I would pump for 15 minutes. So it was a long, arduous process, and that is why it was helpful for me to have a nursing bra and a pumping bra in one, and to have a robe with pockets. If it's helpful, I can do a separate pumping video, but this is my pump. I have the Amita Maya pump, and luckily, before I even knew I was gonna have milk supply issues, I bought this through my insurance. You can get your breast pump free through insurance, so just ask your insurance. And luckily, I got one that was portable. I just knew that it would seem like it would be helpful. So it's battery operated, you charge it, and then you can just carry it around while you're pumping, which for me was crucial because I wasn't tied to the pump. Since I was a new mom, I had so many things I had to do running around the house. Even now, as you've seen in my other videos, I have to prepare lunch, I have to wash dishes, do other things, and take care of a baby while I'm pumping. And so it helped to have a portable pump. Now, the reason that you have to do this is that you have to stimulate your breasts to increase the milk production. So even after my milk came in, I still had very low volumes. You can see in my 1 week video that I was probably producing less than an ounce per session. And it wasn't until about 2 months that I finally got my supply up to what its maximum could be, which was about 100 mils total per session. That means total from both breasts, which isn't very much. So for a while there, Ezra wasn't drinking as much because he's smaller, and so I was able to keep up with the supply and basically only needed 1 full bottle of a formula. But now that he's drinking more, he takes about 2 bottles of formula a day and then 3 bottles of breast milk. Another thing that helped my milk supply is power pumping. So power pumping is where you pump for like 15 minutes, then you rest for 10 minutes, you pump for another 15 minutes, rest for 10 minutes, and you do this for about an hour. And this is supposed to stimulate even more milk and help your third production. I also ate a lot of lactation cookies, I drank Chinese soups, herbal supplements. I did everything possible. And I think in the end it did help, because obviously I went from producing like so little to 100 mils total, which over a 2-month period is pretty good for someone with low milk supply. So unfortunately, I was never able to fully just nurse because I always had to pump, because I always had low supply. So it was a lot of work, and honestly, I had no idea that this would have been an issue, that I would have had that this would be something that I would go through. But you know, they say fed is best. Even though I had to supplement with formula, at least Ezra was getting enough food, and he's grown. He is now 13 pounds and he's moved up in his percentiles for weight. And I just look back at those old videos and pictures of him and just think that he was starving, and we just were too stubborn to feed him the formula because I thought I only wanted to give him breast milk. So I'm just lucky and I'm blessed that, you know, we have the ability to give him formula, because I couldn't produce enough. And I know that it's nothing that I should not blame myself, because how would I know what my body is going to produce? So now I'm pretty much exclusively pumping because I returned back to work. I don't have time to nurse anymore, and honestly, it's just a lot less work, because before I would have to nurse, bottle feed, then pump. Now all I do is bottle feed and pump, and I feed him the express breast milk that I have. So I hope you guys found some tips and tricks in this video about breastfeeding and nursing. Again, I would really recommend talking to a lactation consultant and taking a breastfeeding course. Just know that there could be a myriad of issues that you may encounter when you are breastfeeding, but just know that it's all okay. It's okay to feed formula, to feed bottles. Not everyone's able to nurse, and as long as your baby is fed, that is what's most important. It doesn't mean you love them any less. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!